Hey everyone, I'm Alan Schimmel, CEO, founder of Techstrong Group, people behind DevOps.com, Security Boulevard, Cloud Native now, Techstrong AI, Techstrong ITSM, Digital CXO, and most recently, PlatformEngineering.com. Thank you for joining us here for another Techstrong Learning event. We don't like to call them webinars anymore. We think that's kind of old-fashioned. So it's a Techstrong Learning event. And this event is done in conjunction with our friends at AWS and some of the key AWS partners. Today's event actually features our friends at Presidio, who also happen to be a key AWS partner. They'll talk to us about that. Today's event, learning event, and it is a learning event, I want to emphasize that, is VMware migration strategies, right? Over the last year, a lot of reasons, maturation of the cloud, among them, there are more options than ever in how you want to host your applications, how you want to host your customer-facing data using hypervisors, VMware, etc. We're going to explore some of those, and specifically what are some of the offerings that AWS has that gives you some really nice leverage and some nice options. Presidio is a great company. Working with them to tell you about it, we're going to jump into it. Before we do, though, and before I introduce our speakers, I want to address you, our audience. We use the Big Marker webinar platform. We like it. You don't have to download any plugins. It plays right in your browser. It's easy. Another reason why I like it, though, is the Big Marker Communications panel, which is on the right-hand side of your web browser window. And for most of you, you'll see a big, in black letters, chat. And that's easy for you to see. And if you look underneath the word chat, you'll see there's public and private chat. We don't use private chat here. Right? If you want private chat, go swipe right or left or something. We're not doing that. It's public chat. Now, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Honestly, we do these things. This is not a slideshow. There'll be no slides today. This is a discussion. We have some great people here in Joe and Aaron I'm going to introduce in a second, but they're not the only members of this discussion. You're a member of this discussion. So if you've got a thought, comments, thoughts, questions, please put them in the chat. I'll try to raise it up to Aaron and Joe, and we'll try to answer your questions or comment on your comments. If you do have a specific question, though, for Aaron and Joe, do me a favor. If you look next to the word chat, you'll see Q&A. For most of you, that's grayed out because you're on chat. But if you put Q&A on, you could put your question right in there and they'll come right to me and I can get it out to the panel. We'll try to answer that for you. So that's how you interact here. Emphasis on interaction. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you're thinking. I always like to see who's on and where you're coming from. So if you want to take a moment and tell us where you're from, say hello from wherever in the world you are, it's still kind of freaks me out after all these years on the internet that people from all over the world log on here. And I'm just as easily talking with someone down the road as I am with someone in Singapore. So welcome and feel free to do that. Let me introduce you to our two panelists today and give them a chance to introduce themselves a little bit. First of all, he's the guy who has Presidio up in his background. His name is Aaron Cox. Hey, Aaron, how are you today?
Doing great, Alan. Great to be on.
Thanks for joining us. Aaron, before we jump into the subject matter, give people a little bit of your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm responsible for solution architecture and go-to-market for the modern platforms team at Presidio. And my background is very extensive within the migration and modernization space. I've run migration and modernization practices for other firms in the past, and previously also owned a migration firm as well. And so this has been a big part of my history and a big part of my career as well.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Aaron. Joining Aaron and I is Joe Pierce. Joe, also from Presidio. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks, Alan, and thanks for having us on. So I've been with Presidio just a little bit short of 10 years now, and my responsibilities are I oversee our modern platforms practice, which we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit, but been at Presidio for, again, about 9, 10 years now, and had a range of opportunities overseeing a lot of things that Presidio has delivered. My background is similar to Aaron's in that I also come from having started a business, and that we actually joined Presidio about 4 or 5 years ago. So Aaron and I have a lot of shared stories, but had a really great experience being working with Presidio for the last 5 years and growing our business here for the cloud and working with AWS.
Fantastic. Joe, if you wouldn't mind, people want to know. People are asking, I think. What the relationship Presidio AWS? I know I mentioned you're a partner, but give me a little flavor to that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, dating back for, I think probably about 8, 9, maybe 10 years now, Presidio has been working in partnership with AWS. And at present, we are a premier AWS partner. And so we've spent a lot of time working and growing our relationship, originally starting with how we worked from a resale business, but really growing into a full solutions provider across our portfolio, not only just in terms of how we work with AWS for consumption, but really building on from a migration, from a maintenance, from an application development. So all things on AWS, we're able to work with our customers. We are an MSP partner. We have a number of competencies, notably DevOps, migration, and probably most notably, we have recently entered into a strategic collaboration agreement with AWS, where we're really invested in looking to grow how we can continue to bring our customers and AWS customers onto that platform.
Excellent. Hey, I want to thank everyone out in the audience is telling us where you're from. We are people from Poland and London and Spain and everywhere else in between. It's everywhere. I actually got some questions and some comments, but we'll get to them. But before we start going down that road, because that could be a fork in the road, we don't get back on the main highway here. Joe and Aaron set the tone for us. I mentioned in the beginning, it's been for multiple reasons, right? It's been a year of options and choice and what you want to do with your hypervisor hosted, whether they be on a cloud or in a private data center, your hypervisor-based applications and data. We have more choices, it seems, than ever before. AWS, I think, is one of the leaders in offering that. Presidio works hand in hand. But give me an idea here.
Sure. So Aaron, I'll kind of kick it off, and we'll kind of we'll go a little bit back and forth. But I think overall, Alan, as you talk about the landscape, we've over the course of the past year with the acquisition of VMware by Broadcom, I think it's introduced a choice into the market. And it's something that in taking their platform and recognizing the value that VMware provides to their customers, they've been able to look at that and really to simplify a lot of the licensing options and how it can be deployed, and really consolidating a lot into what is VCF. And with that, I think those changes have given the customers the option and really sort of accelerated the discussion about, what the best path forward for them is, whether that is one or both of whether to continue to leverage the investment. And I think the technology that they have within VMware and VCF, and then also to look at, balancing that against what the options are for lift and shift or native migrations you get onto AWS. Now, in both cases, I think it's presented an option for us to look at what is the best option for the customer, what makes the most sense to them from a business perspective, but also understanding that it's not a black and white, it's not a 0 or 1 type choice, but rather what's the best path for the properties that they have, where can they look and examine their workloads, and that the ability to facilitate both options within the AWS cloud is something that we can present to our customers. I think it's opened up a lot of really good discussions over the course of the year here.
Yeah, recently we built our modern platforms group specifically around the fact that there's so many choices in the market today. And customers really have a lot of different needs that they really need to be able to answer. There's the need to be able to address the data center, the needs around virtualization, cloud, and the ability to automate around all these different solutions and being able to really do what's best for an organization's business and not just the technology component. And with all those choices that are available today, there's really an opportunity to take advantage of each of these in tranches and an ability to be able to utilize the best platforms that are available for the needs that you have based on where you have them within your business and within your technology stack. There's a lot of great opportunities available and cloud native capabilities available out there, and through simple modernization or complex modernization, take advantage of those and really drive a lot of opportunity. EVS has brought the new Elastic VMware solution has brought a lot of capability for organizations that may not be ready to modernize certain portions of their environment, but may be ready to exit the data center. And with that opportunity, that now allows the areas that they are ready to modernize to be able to bring straight into the cloud and be able to make those investments. And when we look at that, it's now no longer just a technology decision. It's what's good for the business, but also now what's the right thing to do from a financial perspective. And there's so much out there from a perspective around being able to look at, are there funding opportunities to help pay for this process? Because when we can take advantage of an opportunity to be able to help customer fund the opportunity to go after modernization, to take on the opportunity to erase technical debt, and to be able to move their business forward, that's really positive. And through AWS, there's opportunities to take advantage of that as they move forward down that path of migration, that path of modernization, and choosing AWS and moving forward down that direction.
Fair. Let me speak a little bit as a layperson, right? Because I'm not as deep into it as the two of you are. No one's putting a gun necessarily to people's heads saying you have to get off of VMware, right? You can't use me. What this really is about, though, is that there are options, and if one of those options and the option you choose is not migrating off VMware, staying on VMware, that's your prerogative, right? You can certainly do that, and I don't, no one I think is going to disparage you for doing that. But there are licensing and money considerations, and then there are technology considerations. To me, money, whenever you do something because you're saving a buck here or there, that's a very easy thing to understand. But sometimes money, it's deceiving because it's the cheapest option isn't always the better option, right? I think we've all learned that the hard way in our lives. But let's, from a technology point of view, guys, can you talk to me or explain to our audience a little bit about what are maybe some of the advantages technology-wise of a migration like this? What are some of the unique AWS/Presidio options that we can hit on?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the opportunity to move into the cloud, one of the first things that's always available is the opportunity for flexibility. So when we think about traditional infrastructure, we're always locked into a period of time and a period of ownership with that infrastructure, not just in the software, but also the physical infrastructure that it's tied to. When we go to the cloud, we have an opportunity to take advantage of the ability to scale up, to scale down, to move off of and move on to different infrastructure, even if we're not modernizing in a heavy fashion. But then there's the opportunity to modernize and to modernize quickly and efficiently at your own pace, and to be able to do that in a more serial fashion. Whereas modernization in the data center is usually a multi-year path. In the cloud, you can do this constantly and often as new capabilities exist, or as you're able to invest in a period of time in your applications and services. There's also an ability to be able to access things like disaster recovery, high availability, in a very efficient, a very inexpensive fashion that's not been available really ever in the past in the previous infrastructure models. But what's even more important is accessibility to solutions that would be typically cost prohibitive to look at building and owning on your own. So things like AI footprint and those types of solutions that are available to you in the cloud that you can purchase in small or very measurable capabilities and utilize and add into your infrastructure and application footprint very quickly and very efficiently. And so those types of things you have access to become very, very easy to be able to bring into your solutions as you are ready for them. And that's one of the high values of the cloud, is to be able to easily access new technologies, new solutions very quickly and easily. But one of the things that people sometimes skip out on is also the opportunity to be able to change your security posture. You have an opportunity to really be able to design a security posture that can ramp up and ramp down throughout your entirety of your environment, that allows you to really be able to harden your environment and really drive towards a policy and structure that protects your environment in a way that you've not been able to do in the past with very, very strict infrastructure. You can move to an opportunity to be able to use things like policy as code and infrastructure as code to drive and manage your environment in a way that allows you to be able to take the human layer out of it and be able to really allow your opportunity to be able to not only show the value of your security to things like regulators and to compliance, but also be able to show to your customers and others your ability to be able to secure their information and their data in a way that you've not been able to in the past. And so the cloud really provides the ability to do that, because you can do that in pockets, or you can do it in an entirety, however you so choose, throughout your environment, without having some of the restrictions that we've had in the data center and infrastructure in the past.
Got it. Joe, any further comments on that?
Well, no, I think, I think Aaron covered a lot of, from a technical aspect. I mean, obviously the things that we're looking for and our customers are looking for is taking those technical aspects and then building upon, again, the choices that they're looking for and how they can achieve that flexibility. A lot of times what they're going to be looking at particularly is, now there are different opportunities to pursue multiple paths in terms of how you can migrate to the cloud, and understanding, taking a deeper dive as we get into the beginning planning phases and really understanding fundamentally what the business objectives are of our customers. Really, it gives us an opportunity to understand, where, I think, Alan, as you mentioned before, there's the cost aspect of it, which is, it is important. It's obviously very important. You have costs that's associated with services, costs that's associated with licensing, but ultimately, continuing to focus on the business objectives that are coming from it and looking at the individual workloads or what needs to be migrated, where the value is to their organization, what's going to be important for them to keep as it is, what needs to be extensible across both the on-prem data center as well as the cloud, versus where some of their properties, their workloads need to be updated. There's an ongoing evolution. I mean, one of the things that we look at particularly, while we can migrate to a cloud, the evolution of the workload, the evolution of the application is never quite done. And so being able to have that conversation with them and understanding where their priorities are, what is really key for them from a workload perspective, and then taking that above and beyond to what we can do to help assist taking those applications and looking where are the advantages of going native versus keeping as is. Even taking those applications a step further and looking to continue to modernize them as well, are things that we talk with our customers about. And, again, the technological underpinnings that Aaron talked about, the reasons for them, help to build upon ultimately where we want to get these customers with their business outcomes.
Guys, one of the reasons I love this format is I get to hear from real people. We got a few in the QA section that I want to throw up to you. One is from Dean. And Dean says he's heard a lot about VMware off-ramp and Kubernetes and containerization as a solution. So really, that's what's being positioned, right? Hey, while you're getting off VMware, now's a good time to go cloud native, multi-thread, do all that good stuff, right? What are your thoughts on that? Is that the time to do it? Is Kube and cloud native the off-ramp to the VMware? Aaron, Joe, either one of you.
So I'll go first. Then Joe probably has a few thoughts to add to this. But
Yeah.
So if the choice is to go to cloud native, there's certainly a path that Kubernetes is an option. Containerization is certainly an option. But ultimately, the appropriate assessment of applications and determining the right cloud native solution on an application by application basis is generally the path that we recommend, because there are multiple cloud native type of services that are available based on the application footprint and the application structure or architecture that may be a best fit. In some cases, Kubernetes is an excellent option and containerization is a great path to go. Not always the right answer from a cost perspective, performance perspective, or an architecture perspective. And so that's something where what we recommend is really looking at each application by application, determining a couple of different things. First of all, architecture and technology fit, but also investment fit. There are going to be applications in every portfolio that from a business and technology perspective should be invested into. There are applications and infrastructure where there's not necessarily a business value to make investment because you want to hold on to them, but they don't have a tremendous amount of value. So you hold them, you look for low value investment areas. Maybe the infrastructure as a service is a better value where you don't want to invest a lot of modernization, but you need to hold on to them for a period. And there's others that you may want to look to divest out of your environment altogether rather than make investments into. And so looking through the portfolio really is an important part of the process of a modernization activity, because just modernizing across the portfolio will typically become very, very expensive and typically will divert you away from making investments where you can get tremendous amount of value in the right places. And so that's some of the things I would recommend first before going down that path. Is that probably more in your portfolio somewhere? Probably throughout the entirety of it. More often than not entirely.
Yeah, and I think that in addition to that, I think one of the other considerations you can look from a true technology sense, and you can say, well, taking into account what Aaron said, you can look and say, okay, is Kubernetes is the best path forward for us? I think more broadly, a lot of the conversations that we have at that same level where we're analyzing the applications, the impact of the organization is also the organization itself, their readiness, their ability to take on different technologies. Sometimes these conversations come down to the customer's comfort level in terms of how they're going to both support and maintain their property going forward. Some of that comes with either, sometimes it is newness to the cloud itself, or more of a comfort familiarity with VMware and VCF. That's going to drive a lot of their decision making. Sometimes taking a deeper dive into specific technologies may be the best technological fit, and that is a key consideration. But sometimes a combination of how the customer is going to get there to support it, whether they engage a partner like Presidio to help maintain and provide managed services on top of that, or how they're going to continue to grow their stack. Sometimes the business decisions are going to need to be weighed against the pure technical decisions to make sure that it's something that's sustainable for the customer going forward. Because I think, as Aaron would say, you could create a lot of different scenarios, but the ability to keep moving forward in terms of where the objectives are and what the real technical and where business value is going to be often needs to be weighed against the maintainability going forward. So, we also incorporate that into the discussions up front to make sure that this is something that, put this way, this is a house we can all live in going forward.
Absolutely. Hey, we've got another question in Q&A, but it seemed to have disappeared there. Amanda, if you're there, can you, it's in, it was from Tracy, and I'm not sure where that one went. If our engineer's in the back, so it was a very specific question to Presidio. Tracy is particularly looking for migration advice, and she wanted to know about Presidio and your services and so forth in there. I'm not sure I'm not sure where it went, guys. I apologize. It was here a second ago. But if you want to, maybe Joe and Tracy, if you're there and you can repaste it, I appreciate it. We'll see what we could do.
So let's see. Well, I tell you what, Alan, while we're talking about talking a little bit about Presidio in particular, I'll do a little bit and we'll kind of dive back into the subject matter here so we don't get too much in terms of the commercially. But overall, from Presidio, and I think talking Presidio's go-to-market, and we have working with AWS as our strategic partner. As we work through, Presidio brings a lot of skills and a lot of go-to-markets to the table. So, at a high level, as we're engaging with our customers, Aaron and I are responsible for the modern platforms practice, which is comprised of helping our customers to build, to automate, to migrate, and to operate their infrastructure and their platforms. That's at the core of what we do. That provides a good foundation for working with the rest of our go-to-market with Presidio, where we have our digital group who does application development and data development as well. We have our modern networking practice. We have a managed services practice. Within all of these, and I'm shorting some of them, but together we're here to deliver, getting these solutions, whether they are on premises or whether they are heading to the cloud. We are the group who is going to help to get our customers there. So in terms of Tracy's question, and for Presidio, again, if you look at what we are responsible for here and where Aaron and I can help from a migration perspective in our group, is around building that infrastructure, whether that is on-prem or whether it is on the cloud, to help provide the automation and migration to get you there, whether we leverage VMware, whether we leverage a native migration. All of those things are ones that we can help to deliver. And then depending on the capability and skill of your organization, we are here to support you on day 2 as well, so that your migration is successful for both as it starts up and going forward.
Got it. Excellent. Guys, we had, of course, this whole flow thing here. Oh, Tracy's back. So real quick, once in AWS and the level of complexities, how do you add value on top of the associated AWS deployed tools? That was good question.
So, Aaron, I'll turn some of this over to you. I think one of the things that as we look for the value that we bring beyond the deployment tools, I think first of all, history of Presidio being over 20 years old now, and having executed thousands of migrations, this is something that is within our wheelhouse and our expertise in terms of not only just the manual act of migrating, which often comes at the end, but understanding the discovery, the assessment, the planning, and the testing that comes with delivering a successful migration is really key in and a lot of the value that we bring. Additionally, particularly if, hopefully if you're on this podcast, you're with our partners AWS and you're looking to see how this is the target in terms of your migration. One of the things that we very much bring to bear, in addition to the expertise and the experience in delivering a full migration, is also, Aaron mentioned this at the beginning, is in terms of how we can work with you and work with AWS to help advocate to make this not just a technically successful migration, but also financially successful one. Our relationships with AWS and how we work with our customers to help bring together AWS incentives and funding from the MAP program in order to deliver this work, the combination of not only our technical expertise and our experience, but also the ability to make this a financially appealing opportunity for our customers. Again, whether the destination is going to be taking this in the form of a native migration to continue to expand and leverage the services that AWS provide and can integrate well on their platform, or continuing to leverage VMware and VCF, all of these are valid options and ones that we can help facilitate and really make this an appealing opportunity for our customers as well.
Excellent. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add a couple of things to that. So, Joe brings up an important point. There's one of the key things about successful migration is removing risk through the act of migration, understanding key dependencies and the process of being able to really deconstruct that, not only the technology side, but also the business side, is a key aspect of what we do and help clients and customers with. Being able to help customers understand the right place to put their applications and services, both at the individual level as well as at the entirety level throughout the environment, is a core part of being successful in migration, being able to go through that process of well-detailed, well-executed migration. And then, once in AWS, unfortunately, it's not just the end of the process, because the cloud is ever changing and ever evolving. And so the need to be able to understand how to best take advantage of modernization and how to build modernization into a lifestyle for an organization is a big part of one of the things we help customers do, so that you can take advantage of the cloud and the constant opportunity to evolve with it. Is a big part of being successful, both from a financial optimization perspective as well as a technology optimization perspective, is something that we help our customers do, both as we help them migrate in and as also as they become, more efficient and more advanced users of the cloud. And this is a big part of also helping organizations take advantage of things like the automation capabilities that are available there, as well as the ability to take advantage of new and ever evolving capabilities that are released. Just this last year at reInvent, there were, over 100 announcements of new capabilities, and being able to take advantage of those quickly is a big advantage of being able to be in AWS. And one of the things we do with customers is help them be able to quickly modernize and move into those capabilities as they're available to them.
Love it.
Yeah, and I think Aaron, what Aaron was talking about as well is that it's not the end of the road as well. So I think if ideally we've had a successful migration, whether it is leveraging the current VMware platform, whether we've gone native and we've fundamentally just executed a lift and shift, but continuing to work with our customers. And I think, Trace, I was looking at the questions below, is that, looking at those workloads and understanding what needs to be done. Sometimes the best path is to do the migration just strictly from a lift and shift, get it over there, get it working, and then continue to look at the value that brings to the organization and understand how that can evolve. One of the things that we've been able to successfully work with our customers, Aaron mentioned reInvent as well, is that Presidio itself has we've created something called Human AI, or HI for short. And we've also been able to leverage that. We have a product called High Modernize that really accelerates by 40% the development and modernization of applications. It's something that, based on a successful migration and having it land in AWS, we can then take that and really accelerate through AI and through the tooling that we've developed, and get our customers to get closer to that business value in an accelerated time as well. So something that we can put into the chat window as well if people are interested for a link for that. But it's another great step in the process to really achieving that business value.
Well, let's put it in there, right? I think it's important. Let's put it in there.
Yeah, I'll if our marketing team hasn't put it in there before already, I'll get it here shortly as you're talking.
And then Joe raises a good point. Modernization can be, it takes time and cost and all those kinds of components. It may not be advantageous to take every modernization step in the initial migration process. And so sometimes we often encourage iterative modernization that takes place over time. And so migrate and then, take care of maybe some initial low-hanging fruit modernization activities that help you take advantage of really, quick gain opportunities moving into the cloud, and then take advantage of larger scale modernization opportunities over time as you settle into AWS and as you settle into taking advantage of larger opportunities. The opportunity to manage the costs, as well as the ability for your team to be able to move at a more measured pace without delaying the opportunity of moving into AWS and taking advantage of AWS over time.
Okay. So guys, I think we've answered a bunch of the questions, but we had our flow that we want to hit on. I'd like to try to return to that and make sure we've talked about a lot of the things you had mentioned in there. One was organizational buy-in, for instance, right? As an executive, and quite frankly, where I sit here at Techstrong, I will tell you that the biggest reason that we see for not just migrations to the cloud or off or on VMware, but any technology adoption, is you don't get that top-down cover. When you don't have the bottom-up support, you don't have organizational buy-in. I would imagine that's something Presidio works with a lot to try to ensure the success of your migration. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we get to work with our customers quite a bit, is just understanding how we can advocate for what's happening. A lot of times, we have a customer that we've worked with that I think a lot of our challenge was less around the technical side, kind of what we were talking about earlier with one of the other questions, less around the technical side, but understanding how to get the organization bought in, because even now, I think there's as we continue to evolve and customers continue to adopt and leverage the cloud and move into AWS, the organizational buy-in for not only the need, the value that Aaron has talked about quite a bit over the course of this. That's sometimes an easier conversation to understand the value of what the applications, what the workloads, the value that it brings to the business, and why they need to continue to evolve that. But also, sometimes we have to work with our customers in order to help bridge the gap between the value that comes from this migration, or the value of continuing to update their properties, but rather helping to bring along the individuals who are within the organization, getting their buy-in, so that they can see that this is not only good for the organization, but also from a skill perspective and from a continued evolution of what they're doing, that it's good for them. Because there will be, there a lot of times where people have had success in operating a platform, and particularly operating on-prem, they're reluctant to advocate for a change. And so helping them to show the value of that change, show them the path that we can all be successful, is also key for us as well. Because again, this customer we talked about, that was a lot of the challenge, was not so much in terms of the things that we were saying, but also getting them to embrace how it was good for them as well. And so that buy-in is also a key part of the assessment as well, so that there is a path not just to get them into the cloud, but again, what happens on day 2? How are they going to be involved? How are they going to contribute value to the organization? How are they going to own it? What are their options in order to help support it? And Presidio is there in regardless of what context it is, whether we're supporting and to enable them to take it themselves, or whether it's something that we can continue to support them, because a lot of times the conversations also go into the direction of the concept of the undifferentiated heavy lifting. A lot of times customers, they want to make sure that their people, a lot of times, who have been in the business for a long time, they have subject matter expertise, and they are the ones who can really contribute to the direction of those objectives, how they can be successful. And then some of the blocking and tackling is something that may not be of value. A lot of times customers are balancing that. They're just like, well, I have my day job, which is to keep the lights on, but then I also want to contribute value. So hopefully we can help provide them value in terms of a lot of things that we bring to bear. If we can help to automate things to take some of that workload off of them, if we can help to provide a managed services that provides that monitoring and that 24/7 eyes on glass approach, it gives the customers the ability to look a little differently at the value of their migration and how they can take things forward in a way that really leverages the skill and the not only the company knowledge, but the industry knowledge that their people bring to bear. And sometimes they get overrun with those day-to-day activities, as a lot of us do.
Sure do. Just wanted people putting in there. Joe put yours in. I'm just making sure we got everyone. So Tom K wants to go a little bit deeper, guys. You ready? We can all imagine at least 3 main scenarios. The ultimate one, where every resource primarily uses AWS-native services, possibly serverless, and then the need of VMs is drastically reduced. Scenario B, the company is eager to start cloud native in parallel to keep original VMs locally, leveraging the outpost concept. And C, the poorest hybrid, where simply VMs are distributed between a local data center and the cloud is treated as a nearby one-to-one mirror, but giving more scalability. Kind of this cut the baby in half option. What do you think? Is this true? Is this what you see with your clients, and how do you escape that?
I mean, I think we see all of these, right? And I think that sometimes organizations live in all 3 of these states at different points in time in the process as well too. It's difficult to be in a state where you suddenly magically all live in scenario A very quickly and overnight. This is a process. There's not a magic button that's going to quickly move you from living in the data center today, in a traditional platform or a traditional, virtualized subset, to all of a sudden being fully cloud native and running in AWS. It's a process, and you're going to go through a process where you have a little bit of C, you have some B, and then maybe eventually get to A. But being fully at A may not be fully correct for your business either. And that's why there's a need to be able to really look at your infrastructure footprint, your application footprint, and your business, and where the right investments are. Because there may be a period of time where keeping certain infrastructure in the data center or in an EDS type footprint really is the right investment for your organization for a longer period of time. And that's the right thing to do. And that's what you want to be able to do, is really understand what is correct for your organization and for your technology footprint, and then move into that with great intent. Because where you make that investment into the cloud with great intent is where you're going to get the really great return. And that's where you want to put that time, that effort, that investment, and really drive that and really get a great return from it. When you don't when you don't go into it with intent, is when you start to lose the opportunity to get great return. And that's where you got to be able to measure that out and then determine where the right fit is.
Yeah, and I think that, and sorry, Alan, I didn't mean to cut you off. And I think this is where, when we look at the opportunities that have come in terms of how AWS has approached this and working with VMware, working with Broadcom, I think it speaks to that, as knowing that within Tom, I think Tom's presented, 3 very interesting options here. And as Aaron was saying, there may not be one single answer to address all situations here. And what AWS and what VMware have brought to the market, if you look at the path forward, is that the option, it's not a 0 or 1 choice necessarily, but rather what's going to be the right fit for certain things. So in the case where there may be a value in terms of having things either, in option C that Tom came up with the hybrid, there may be value in that, and where extending the property and leveraging the forthcoming launch of EDS is one that we can have that opportunity to identify what is maybe the best fit there, and where is there not a lot of value for the organization to update those. But at the same time, looking at other options, I think we talked about use of AWS native services, serverless, then we're taking a deeper dive into the workloads and understanding and really justifying what's the value of moving it to native, and then moving it and continue to evolve the application as well. So I think that these are, it's not a 0-1 choice, but oftentimes look at the individual properties. Now, it may be a direction for our customer, to be fair, that, it depends what the business drivers are. If there is a case where a customer absolutely has to get out of a data center. I mean, we had a great customer this past year that came to us. They acquired a competitor of theirs. That competitor was on-prem fully. The acquirer was fully on AWS. And so there were definitely philosophically different versions of where the value is. And you think about, in the context of an acquisition, how those are going to fit together, where the high value apps are from both companies that are being brought together. And by the way, the data center of the acquired company was going to jack up the prices significantly. Now, that's a compelling event, and where, the finance and the cost is going to drive a lot of the decision making about, well, it turns out that the data center is not a great option here, but we have an option where we can look to run, where in some cases company A, it continues to run native applications, continues to enhance and gets a path forward, whereas the apps that we needed to get out of the data center. And so, time was the order of the day, and time to execution was the order of the day. So we needed to move that out, and in a go forward case, EBS provides a great option for them. So it's a lot of times the context is going to dictate, and the value of the operation. There is ideally you can move towards one solution, but in the meantime, sometimes the horizon of what we need to accomplish is going to dictate that as well.
And when you look at each of these scenarios, your structure of how you execute will be a little bit different, right? When you look at, option C, you might be very, very focused on a structure where you're going to go and just do a very tool-based, very heavy replicated approach. B, it's going to be a little bit of a mix of migration approaches where you're going to split that across the very tool heavy base versus, potential for, some migration as code where you take advantage of a little bit of infrastructure as code. And then A, you're going to be doing a lot of application rewrite, a lot of rebuild, a lot of rebuild of applications and services into, cloud native capabilities. And so when you look at that, that's going to really separate your migration strategies based on the way you're defining your destination and your destination paths.
Guys, I want you to note the time at 1:41 East Coast time. We got our first question about AI. I can't believe we made it that far.
Held them off for that long.
So Ricardo, though, asks, is Presidio leveraging Gen AI or ML technologies to optimize various stages of cloud migration, such as assessment, discovery, dependencies, mapping, etc.? Or can you share specific use cases or examples where these technologies have been particularly impactful, increased value to the customer? There you go.
So was the question, are we using AI to
Yes, and well, I think the question is, it's a two-part. Are you using AI and is there an ROI there?
Yeah. So are we using AI? The answer to that question is absolutely yes. So one of the offerings that Joe posted on there was around our human AI capability around where we're utilizing AI to help with advancing code developments in specific types of application development projects and modernization engagements. So there are areas where we're utilizing that for certain. And then what was the second part of the question?
And has it proven effective? Is there an ROI there?
In that case in particularly, absolutely. We've seen a huge drastic reduction in time to completion in those situations. The stats are very, very telling. In those situations, been a massive reduction in time to completion in those situations, and provided some tremendous cost savings to customers. The other thing that we're also seeing as well is that just from a productivity tool set perspective, we're seeing a lot of usage just in large migration engagements, the usage of AI tools to help those projects be more efficient. And when you look at migration and modernization engagements, they're relatively large just scenarios for both clients and for us. And utilization of those tool sets can be very valuable in that regard as well, too.
Understood. Guys, you never know what the format of these webinars, whether it's just going to be the three of us having an intimate conversation or we spend our time, making our customers here happy. This is one of those where we're spending our time answering questions of people. Tracy, and to be fair, it sounds like Tracy's in the midst of migration. She may want to reach out to Presidio. She's on AWS already, but she's got a lot of questions. If you went multi-cloud, on-prem, with some edge coming this year, so the little bit of everything, how do you suggest managing those? Multi-cloud orchestration, essentially. Is that something you guys have dealt with at Presidio? And then she follows that up with, is there anyone else you have a strong partnership with that is also an AWS partner? No. Guys, what do you think?
So there are control plane orchestration tool sets for those types of scenarios. I mean, it depends on a lot of different things in terms of how you're managing automation and how you're managing observability and those types of components that would come into play in those regards. But there are tool sets and control planes for those scenarios. But that's a pretty broad question there. Don't know if you want to add anything to that. But there are quite a few tool sets that are very, very capable for that scenario.
Yeah, it's definitely a good multi-layered question, Trace. And I think it's definitely want to look forward to talking with you about offline, because I think we could probably kill the last 10 minutes of this.
Tracy has this question. We're not going to be able to get them all. No, my advice, Trace, you've got great questions. These guys have had answers for you, but we're going to need you to have like a private one-on-one with them, and they could really nail it down. While we're at it, though, Naveen, and again, guys, feel free to what you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable, Naveen could also come off, offline to help you or to get help here. He wants to know, is Presidio helping customers migrating existing data center onto AWS cloud? Any recent migrations that you could share? I don't know if you have any public case studies out there, or is that something we should take off camera here, offline?
I mean, honestly, I I hate to answer it this way, but that Naveen, that's a great question, but that describes most of our.
Every one of your migrations, every one of your engagements.
Yeah, that was the engagement we have happening right now. We do have a few case studies on the website. We'd be happy to share some case studies with you directly, as well. If you'd like to reach out, that's certainly in the majority of our migrations. Certainly look or start in that regard.
Yeah, and if I can add on that, I think one of Naveen, as I'm looking at your question now, I think one of the things to highlight here, we'll go a little bit back to some of the AI answer as well, is that I think at least the word that I'm keying in on is in legacy platform applications. So a lot of times when you're coming from that point of view, you have something that may have been written 20 or more years ago. Let's just say, more often than not, we're probably dealing with the three-tier application, which is a pretty common use case. And so the question isn't not only just, should we move that to the cloud? We're trying to get out of our data center and getting out of our legacy architecture. But then where can we take advantage of AWS? And how do we look at this application from either just a strict replatforming or refactoring or even a rewrite? And these are things that Presidio helps with pretty consistently in terms of that application analysis, the dependency analysis as well, in terms of where we can take that and then be able to work with you. So a lot of times, we saw this pattern over and over again in terms of how we're working with our customers. And we have delivered in all the ways that we've talked about, refactoring as well as just completely rewriting the application. Sometimes candidates are better than others, but this is also why we invested in High at Human AI for our offering as well, because we understand that these legacy applications, they continue to deliver value for the business, but they're almost becoming cost prohibitive or sometimes even having challenges maintaining them as well. So a lot of our motions are geared towards looking at what you're trying to accomplish and deciding whether it makes sense to rewrite, refactor it where it is and move it over, or more often than not, be able to just move it over, get it lift and shift, and then we can look to help understand and really dive into the application. I mean, customer example we talk about, we're working with the customer right now who is taking what was a single data center application running, and as their business has expanded globally, particularly into Europe as well, we're basically refactoring the application, take advantage of the scalability that AWS brings to bear, but then doing that in a multi-region approach so that we are able to provide that redundancy and speed and throughput that the customer is looking for, that the on-prem data center was just never able to accomplish. So these stories build upon each other, and it's very much at the core of Naveen, what we do for taking these legacy applications and getting them both performant, more focused on the business, and then in the AWS cloud as well.
Guys, we only have a few minutes left. Looking over our flow doc, there was one area I think, we spoke about choice before, but I don't know if and maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. Did we clearly enunciate what EVS is and the difference between EVS and native? Are you guys satisfied with that? We hit on that well enough?
Well, let's talk about that for just a moment. So the Elastic VMware solution that was announced at reInvent in early December is essentially the replacement solution for VMC, the VMware on AWS solution that was available previously. And the new solution provides some increased flexibility over the previous solution, but also will be openly available as we move into 2025. It's not quite available for general release yet, but is almost available for early availability release soon. Presidio is a early release partner and was actually part of helping develop the solution and helping support AWS and VMware in that process as well. And so we already have a pretty deep understanding of the solution and deep skill set within the EVS solution as well today. So very core area for us.
Very cool. Very cool. Look, we've got maybe 3-4 minutes left. I want to thank the audience for their questions. We've had great questions, but Joe and Aaron, I want to use the next 3-4 minutes. Let's tie some bows on things here, things we want to touch on that we didn't touch on. Anything?
Yeah, and I think it looks like I may be having some bandwidth issues. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you. We hear you good.
Yeah, I think just to put to tie a bow in it, I'll kick off, Aaron. You close us out here. I think just we've gotten some great questions in terms of the path forward. Aaron just talked a little bit about EVS as well, but I think the main things I think as we close out here is just from a services delivery perspective, Presidio is here for our customers to not only support what they're doing within their on-prem data centers, where they would like to get to in the AWS cloud, and how they can leverage VMware as part of that solution in whatever form makes sense for their business. Highlighting a few things. I think one of the things that Presidio does exceptionally well as a premier partner is how we work with our customers to help financially balance their migrations between the technical objectives and the financial objectives, and really advocate for them from a funding perspective as well, in terms of how we can make this most appealing for the customer to really start to take advantage of all that AWS provides. Above and beyond that, again, we're really excited about the where we're in pre-launch, not official launch right now, but with EVS, the ability for customers to continue to leverage the licensing model that Broadcom has rolled out and to leverage all the features of VCF, to do that, to make that part of the solution, and then to automate how we can bring those solutions together is something that we're very excited to work with our customers about. I think last but not least, just the ability to support on day two. It's something that part of our charter here at Modern Platforms is, again, to build, to automate, to migrate, and to operate afterwards. So whatever the solution, whatever the path here is, working with our customers for VMware and with AWS, we're here to support them.
I love it. All right. Looks to me we have a minute or two. Let me wrap up here if I can. First of all, as I mentioned, thank you, audience, for a fantastic interactivity. As I said, there's two ways these things go. I much rather prefer a very interactive panel and with an interactive audience. So thank you all. And the questions, these were not 500,000 feet questions. These were down and dirty, get AWS and Presidio under our fingernails questions. And those are great. Joe and Aaron, thank you both. Thank you to AWS for facilitating this whole program that, results in this today. I think the important thing, though, I want everyone to take away here is, AWS, we all know what a great platform and how this is the major, biggest cloud platform in the world. But it doesn't maintain that and stay that way without partners like Presidio, who kind of are stretching the boundaries, are greasing the wheels, the skids, and making the day-to-day happen for people like you in the audience. So, and it's hard to come on here and just, pontificate about it. But where the rubber meets the road is where companies like Presidio really kind of shine. So I encourage you all, we can't possibly answer all your specific scenarios here, but you took the first step today in coming to this webinar. Take the next step. You're going to get a thank you note from the good folks at Presidio. I'm sure will follow up. If you've got questions, you've got comments, you've got things to do there, do follow up with them, because at the end of the day, we're going to have a quick survey here probably for you too. We want these. We don't put these on to hear ourselves talk. We put them on to help you. And so appreciate the discussion, we'd love to see you continue it with our friends at Presidio and AWS. Joe, Aaron, thanks for an amazing show. I know he can spend, and you guys did, you spent months putting together your sheets, and then real life happens, right? And customers, potential customers are real life questions, and we dive in. But you guys handled it like pros. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the time today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Alan. Appreciate it to you and to AWS as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Presidio here on Techstrong. What a great job. We'll see you at the next Techstrong Learning event. But for now, this is Alan Schummel. We're out of here.